Hey everybody, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. I'm sure we've all heard the saying, ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking the law, or some version of that. I'm sure we've all heard it. It's basically indoctrinated into us as children. Our parents, our teachers, cops, on TV. I'm sure we've all heard it. But that saying only pertains to people like me and you. It doesn't pertain to police officers, according to the Supreme Court. Now, some of you may be, browbeating me through your computer screens right now, but seriously, there was a court case in 2014, Heien versus North Carolina, Heien v. North Carolina, where these two people were, cruising down the road, and an officer pulled them over for having a brake light out. So during his investigation, as they like to call it, he said that they started acting suspiciously. They were giving, conflicting answers about where they were headed. And one of them was laying down the entire time. So, of course, that's suspicious. And he asked if he could search the vehicle. They gave him permission, so he finds cocaine in a duffel bag. Okay, a couple of things before I get into the Supreme Court ruling. One, don't ever let a cop search your vehicle. Make him go and get a warrant. So don't ever let the cops search your vehicle. Never give consent. Never. And on top of that, don't answer questions. The cop does not need to know where you're going. The cop does not need to know what you're doing. The cop does not need to know where you've been. Don't answer questions like that because you don't have to. If you are being asked questions like that, all you have to say to the officer is, am I being detained? Or something of that nature to deflect the conversation back to your own rights of silence. You don't have to say anything. You can remain silent, and you should. There's my little spiel for that. Now let's get back to this case. What happened is that Heien moved to get the evidence dismissed, the cocaine actually dismissed from the case, which means he wouldn't go to jail for cocaine or have it on his record. And how was he able to do that? Well, turns out in North Carolina, you only need one working brake light. Now, I don't know how many states have that law, but in North Carolina, apparently only one is enough. So what they were arguing is that because the officer pulled them over for reasons that were lawful, so he incorrectly pulled them over in the first place, that they never would have been searched, after that, which means that evidence should be suppressed. Now, I agree to an extent because the officer should absolutely know what the laws are if he's going to enforce them. How can you enforce something you don't understand? And a brake light issue. You would think of one of the probably very few states in the country where you only have to have one working brake light. You would think that the officer would know that. He should know that. At some point during his career, he had to have figured out that, oh my goodness, they can get around with one brake light. How many people do you think he sees on a daily basis that has a brake light that doesn't work? Probably a few. And over the course of a week, at least a few. But the court said that his mistake was reasonable. Therefore, the search and seizure were also reasonable, which is based on the Fourth Amendment, the text of the Fourth Amendment. So because this officer was ignorant of the law, it didn't matter because it was reasonable ignorance. I mean, we know reasonable ignorance is the best kind of ignorance that you can have. So to be an officer, hey, you don't actually have to know the laws that you're enforcing. You just have to kind of, do some things and then hope like hell when you get to court, the judge is going to be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's reasonable that he didn't know he couldn't, put a gun up to the head of an infant child. He thought that child had a Glock in his diaper. I mean, of course, that's a little ridiculous. I realize that. But at the same time, how ridiculous is it that we as a nation and our justice system allows ignorance to pervade law enforcement like that? We condone such things. That's ridiculous. So I'm not going to defend the people. Even though I disagree with the war on drugs and I think drugs should be legal, I'm not going to defend the fact that they were, in fact, breaking the law. Nobody's going to feel sorry for them in that regard. But the precedent set in that case is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. That means a cop can just pull you over and then be like, oh, well, your tires are low. Officer, I didn't know that my tires being low was against the law. It sure is. And then what are you going to do? You're going to really fight that? You're going to fight that? Most people won't. Most people will just go and pay the fine. They'll just assume that the officer knew exactly why he was, knew exactly why he was pulling a person over. So if you're a law enforcement officer, ignorance of the law is an excuse. If you're a person and don't necessarily pay attention to law, you don't study law, you have nothing to do with law, you have to know every ordinance, every policy, every statute, every federal law, everything. You have to know it by heart, even though if you walk into a city's municipal, library with all of the ordinances, it's huge. No one person would be able to even read most of that in a couple of years. Yet they expect you to know them all. And that's ridiculous. And that's all for now, guys. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like and share button as well. Until next time, this is Tim with Op-Ed Daily. Peace out.